So there was a study of 51 failed organizations, and the results were really pretty interesting. When they tried to analyze what was the cause of the failure of those 51 firms. And when they looked at it, they had to conclude that in every single case, the cause was foreseeable. In no cases was the cause not foreseeable. Right. And so when you thought about, a competitive environment and industries changing, the indicators were there. But for whatever reason, the top management teams missed those indicators, or they saw those indicators, but sometimes, and maybe you've had experience working in an organization, the bureaucracy just prevents you from being able to change. And so you maybe know that you should change, but you're not able to change because of the structure, the rules, the policies, the procedures, the culture, the reporting mechanisms. Maybe it's a lack of cash. I mean, there could be lots of reasons, but the cause was foreseeable and not unforeseeable. Although other books like to talk about, failure, what are causes of failure in terms of external causes of failure. Many times you could say it's the economy, that the economy is taking a serious downturn, and so that's created challenges for companies. You could say that the competitors have changed, that you've got, rivals that you never really perceived to be competitors in the past, and suddenly they've developed some new competency or some new skill set. And so that's created a real problem for you. Could be changes in society and demographics or expectations of consumers. Could be a new technology that's come along, that ultimately was the cause of the failure. So a number of external factors. Internally, it really comes down to just a couple of things. One could be that the strategy was a failure. And what do we mean by that? We mean that the strategy, there was a lack of a fit between, we talked about that, but we were talking about resources and capabilities, and putting chapter 3 and 4 together. There was a lack of fit between the organization's resources and capabilities and what that external environment was presenting them with. And so that lack of fit is a challenge. Or secondly, management failure, right? That management failed to see the signs. So as I look over that list of external causes of failure and internal causes of failure, and then superimpose the previous slide, that if most failures were foreseeable, well, wouldn't all causes of decline somehow relate to managerial failures? That the problem wasn't that the economy changed. The economy was the problem was the economy was changing, and for whatever reason, we didn't recognize how that economy was changing. We weren't resilient enough. Same thing with the competitors. I mean, they were doing their things all along, but for whatever reason, we were unable to mount a challenge to the changes that were occurring among our rivals. Or society was changing, or demographics were changing, or technology was changing. I mean, this stuff was all going on, but for some reason, it comes back to that resilience. When I had those blinders, you don't always see them. And so I would argue, and I understand it's easy for me, as a professor, to sit back on the side and say, well, it's all management's fault. But ultimately, if you would argue that the problem was that these series of declines were foreseeable, then, ultimately it has to do with our inability as an organization to really understand what's happening in our external environment. Had a really nice article, Unilever. I love Unilever, the company, although their stock price has been struggling of late. But a really nice post about the way that they've innovated and how they continue to innovate. And if you look at the article that she linked to, what was neat was the fact that they rely on multiple sources of innovation. And some of that is very internal to the organization. So creating processes and R&D to innovate their strategies and their technologies and their automation and general. So much of their innovation is all internally based, but that's not sufficient. And I think they recognize that. And so they couple that internal innovation with a whole host of external opportunities. And so they've got a whole number of partnerships where they're learning more about protein-based plants and how to replace meat with protein, with plants that have protein included, and a host of other different types of strategies that they've got that are relying on external, that is collaborations, I would presume strategic alliances with other organizations as a way of innovating and growing. So a neat overview of innovation. It doesn't just have to come internally. You know, as we talked about, sometimes that's why companies form strategic partnerships and alliances, because that's just another way to become more innovative. I like this because it was companies like, I know of Foxconn, but not of Gogoro. And so a motor scooter that's, known for its smart technology, its electric vehicle. And this was just a really interesting post, in part because I don't really know much about either firm, other than Foxconn's history of working as a partner for Apple. But what was really neat was that combination of leveraging skills and relying on skills of partners. And so that's one of the benefits of strategic alliances, is you bring to the table what you're really good at. And so for one company, it might be their technology. For another company, it might be their manufacturing. And you can't really do well without both of them. And so it was a really nice example of how you find partners who have skill sets, resources, or capabilities that complement what you have. And I thought that was an interesting post. And so I appreciated that one. And so I went on and actually looked at that article, and it was an excellent article. In fact, I went and posted a link to it in your session 2 materials online, because it's something you might want to refer to. And that way I also have it for future classes. But it's called 5 Reasons Why Your Employees Don't Understand Your Company's Vision. One is lack of communication. And so you perhaps, as this article talked about, you go off-site as a top management team and come up with a vision, but you don't really ever articulate it to your employees. And I think even worse yet, the fact that you go off-site and don't include them in helping to identify and craft the vision, that in itself is a problem. I might have mentioned, I don't know, we're just starting a strategic planning process here at the university. And top management at the university is using all kinds of employees at all levels to be involved in this whole process, because it's really for all of us. It's not just for the top management team. And so lack of communication, different altitudes, seeing things from different perspectives in different parts of the organization. The one that I thought really resonated with Only's point is this idea of what they call low fidelity. In this case, what employees mean when you say there's no North Star is that while there's a written statement, decisions and individual actions are not aligned with the commitment that's communicated. And so, you have a vision, but you don't act that way, right? And that just sends a message to everyone that, well, it's really not our vision. And I think that's the point that he was trying to make in his post, is that he didn't call it low fidelity, but that's really what that is. A 4th reason was distaste, just simply, I don't like it. I know what the vision says, but I don't like it. And so I'm not going to follow it. I understand it, but I'm not going to follow it. And then another reason might be work avoidance, that, well, if that vision is true, then maybe it means I'm going to have to start doing things differently. And I don't want to do that. And so I may try to ignore it or not pay attention to it. Anyways, great. It was a really great article on vision. I hadn't seen that before. I subscribed to HBR, and this was a really current, you can see September 7th, 2021. So a very current article, a good article on vision.